Hey everybody, Chris Lindsay here, and you're listening to Pitch List. Join us on a deep dive into the heart of what makes writing songs and making music so magical. Let's find out what makes songwriters tick, and along the way, remember why we love music. Welcome to Pitch List. Hey everyone, Chris Lindsay here. I want to thank everyone who listened to our Season 4 and welcome you to a special Minisode as we break for the holidays. Earlier this summer, we ran a song contest on social media to give you guys the opportunity to enter an original song and get yourself an interview on the show. Today we are talking with our dual winners because both of their songs were just too damn good not to pick. We'll be hearing about their songwriting journeys, listening to their songs, and doing some live feedback.
First up, it's Mike Cali. Good
afternoon. We've got a special edition of Pitch List today, something we've never done before, and I'm really excited. Dana had an idea to do a song contest. It's been going on for a little while. We had a bunch of entries. We got it down, and what happened, and just so, because I think Dana told you, Mike, but I'm letting you know, there were two songs that we both loved. And they were so close that I just wanted to make co-winners because I just couldn't handle either one of you guys being, not being able to get a little press out of it because they were great. So one of our guys is Mike Cali, and he's talking to us today. And so welcome to Pitch List, Mike. How are you doing?
Thank you. This is awesome. I'm doing well. This is very surreal. I'm not used to talking back to you when I'm listening to the podcast. Wow. So this is awesome. Thank you for having me. And it's an honor.
Well, that's very sweet for you to say. Thank you. And I'm just glad we've got people out there listening. It's great. So you are from New Jersey. I heard you and Dana talking before. What town in New Jersey?
Yeah, small world. Dana and I are actually from about 5-10 minutes away from each other. Here in New Jersey. I'm from a town called Marlboro, New Jersey. This is where I grew up. I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, if we get technical. And I actually spent the better part of the last decade out in the Midwest. But I am in New Jersey right now.
Right on. How far are you guys from New York City?
I'm about a 40-minute car ride from New York and about an hour from Philly. So we're situated right in the middle.
Right on. Yeah, I got to visit some friends at a place called Bayhead, New Jersey on 4th of July.
That's right on the water, right? It's beautiful there.
Yeah, it's a cool little beach community there. Yeah, right on the water. It's really beautiful, man. It was about the same, I guess, 45-minute drive from the city, I think. But
right, yeah, New Jersey gets a lot of flack, in the mainstream media. But when you come to New Jersey, you start believing and seeing that it's a beautiful place.
It is, and it's worth saying, probably because of The Sopranos and other TV shows, people think of it as this grisly outskirts of New York City, and really 99% of New Jersey is farmland and beautiful coastline. It's country. It's country.
It's the garden. That's the Garden State in the state flag. Yeah. I just learned on Jeopardy this week that there's one of the women, I think, on the New Jersey state flag is holding a cornucopia representing the abundance of produce that comes from New Jersey.
That's great. I know there's a lot of farming in New Jersey. I know there's a lot. Let's talk about you, man. Let's talk about, do you play in local bands there in your town or mostly production? Or tell us about how you do your time and how do you
Sure. I've always done music since I was younger. I was a choir kid. I was a jazz band kid. I played the trumpet. And it wasn't until I went to college that I started picking up the guitar, getting some positive feedback in the dorm room when I started singing and got the encouragement of my friends to do open mics. And that's when that started at Villanova in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And I then began performing at different events. Then I graduated college, went to Pittsburgh, where I really started playing a lot more out on different stages, opening up for national acts as they came through Pittsburgh, and really I really enjoy performing, and that's definitely a part. I've been writing songs since I'm very young, since I'm probably about 16 years old, and it wasn't until the pandemic when I had sort of a come to moment. I did the whole 9 to 5 corporate thing, and kind of put music on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until the pandemic presented itself as a time of recentering for myself, and I was able to kind of structure my time during the day in a way that really was a blessing, to come back to music.
So am I hearing you right that during the pandemic, you sort of did some refocusing on what was important to you, and you had another job, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I have to pay the bills. And
Sure, man.
I had
Everybody does.
So prior to the pandemic, I was working in a 9 to 5 job, 9 to 5 corporate, doing the cubicle thing. And before about 2 years prior to the pandemic, I decided to take the risk of starting my own company. And this was not music related, but something that I was tremendously passionate about, stemming from my 9 to 5 job. And at the time, I was living in Pittsburgh when I was doing my 9 to 5 job. And I decided to start a company with my brother. We moved out to South Bend, Indiana. So that was while I was working on the startup. I had this amazing opportunity to go out to Los Angeles and sing on a television show. And that was, to date, the biggest performance that I've ever had.
Right.
And was tremendously validating, and my first time under the lights, so to speak, as a performer. How
did that go? Was it fun, or was it terrifying, or both, or how was it?
It was both. It was tremendously fun. I met a lot of great people who I still keep in touch to this day. Mm-hmm. It was a sort of a frightening experience. It was a kind of a one and done kind of a performance. I knew that it was my moment to perform, and I had to do it. And all in all, I was very happy with the way that it came out. I was somewhat playing a character. So the nature of the show was focused on myself as the wedding singer, or as what I was doing in real life, but only a characterized television persona of that, if that makes sense.
So a little acting too, a little singing and acting.
A little singing and a little acting. Thank you for helping me beef up the resume there, Chris.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Well, I know. How much do you write? Do you write every week, every day, a couple of times a week? How much do you write songs?
I try and write songs a little bit every day. It wasn't until during the pandemic when I really tapped into all of this knowledge that is out there on the internet. Your podcast included has been tremendously influential in terms of discovering songwriting as an industry and as a career, which wasn't something that was really introduced to me just by the nature of where I'm from here in New Jersey. Something that was unfamiliar to my parents and my early mentors. But it wasn't until kind of discovering songwriting as an industry that I began to approach it with a more kind of business type mindset, if that makes any sense, where I'm a little more structured about organizing my time. Like I said, I've been writing songs my entire life, but never with the sort of, I would say, organization and structure that I did since the beginning of 2021. 2021 really turned a new page for me in terms of co-writing and connecting with other people. Something that I feel so blessed to discover, and has really led to some really great things, meeting great people, such as the writers that I wrote the song that eventually led to us meeting. So
that's great, man. So how when you're writing, like from a commercial standpoint now, and your kind of new vision with this, who do you want to pitch your songs to? Do you write country, or are you more pop and rock, or pop country, or what? Who would be like the ultimate artist for you to get a cut on? That's a great question.
I would say right now I love. I don't know whether they're accepting open songs, but I love.
It's okay. Pie in the sky. Just anybody.
This is a pie in the sky. I love Old Dominion.
Okay.
Keith Urban, Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw. I don't know that I necessarily am sitting down and writing specifically for these people at this moment, though, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
I found myself having more success kind of writing for the artist that I'm working with at the time right now, and kind of taking baby steps towards and honing my skill set and kind of discovering what value that I have to bring to a writing room. So I'll give you a perfect example is this song that was the entry into the contest, was writing with my now friend, Matt Freedman, who is a tremendous writing talent and has been really, really inspiring in terms of his work ethic. It makes it a lot more attainable in terms of having success with writing that song for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, as you kind of hone your craft and you start taking shots at Keith Urban, Kenny Chesney, Amy and my wife and I have always said, target writing. Some people can target write. For us, it's and a lot of people I know, it's really difficult to say, you get in a room and say, hey, let's write a song for Keith Urban today. You really have to just do something great. You know what I mean? And I hear you I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and similar situation. No one knows about songwriting. Nobody knows anything they barely know anything about the music business. And it's very hard to have any information when you're growing up. And you're that's why things like NSAI that do local chapters is so great. So what's your next, give us your next year. Are you continue to hone your skills as a songwriter? Do you find that Nashville's in your future, or do you think you'll work from here, or how's your other business doing? Talk to us about all that.
So I'll start with what you most recently said about the startup business. There was during the pandemic, we had to make the decision to wind down the business, which was kind of led to a bit of a grieving process, believe it or not. It's a really sad thing to see something you pour so much of your heart and soul into kind of come down. And I think a part of healing from that is music and kind of recentering myself on being able to recenter myself on something that feels a lot more natural to me. When I make music, I almost feel like I'm pushing a ball downhill. When I was working on the startup, I felt like I was just continually pushing the ball uphill for so long. And it's really a beautiful thing to have that come to moment and say, this is what I want to do. This is the thing that I want to do. And it might not make sense to a lot of people that are around me right now in terms of their knowledge of songwriting as an industry is very, very minimal, like you were saying. So, I'm really focused on kind of allowing just natural things to happen when it comes to music. And it's really been a blessing and a beautiful thing. And I've been receiving a lot of great feedback, this contest included. I feel so grateful to have been recognized, because oftentimes, you probably know this from experience, like writing songs feels like you're driving in a car during the middle of the night for a very long time, and you don't really know where you're going, but like you have to stay awake, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I say you have to because it's a calling. It's like you feel like this is what you're meant to be doing. And this contest is like, I equate it to receiving a cup of coffee during that car ride, and keeping you awake and giving you like, hey, everything's gonna be all right. You just keep going. You're onto something. Which I think that's not necessarily why I do it, but it's definitely a very validating thing, especially as an independent writer. My goal is to eventually, I guess, not be an independent writer, but to make a living playing music. And if I speak from a really high level in terms of my goal right now, it's to have a beautiful family and make music for a living, and have a studio, have a home studio out in the backyard. That's my goal, and I think that's where my car is going. That's where my car ride is headed to.
That's awesome, man. I love that you specifically know the things you want, because I was telling someone else, just something I've learned in life. If you can't write down on a piece of paper exactly what you want, and I mean exactly, like a figure or a job description, you can't get it because you don't know what it is. Your heart and your subconscious and your heart is an incredibly powerful weapon, but it has to be focused, right? And I love the vision of your life that you said is so awesome. And I love the car analogy because, boy, I remember I was here in Nashville for 4 years, and I was close to thinking, well, this isn't going to work, and I'm going to have to go home, you always have those nagging doubts. What if it doesn't work? What if it, because it's a hard thing to do, and you don't get a lot of validation. Even when you live in Nashville, you tend to be in a community with people in the same boat as you, and there's a lot of negative talk in those communities, So I think it's great you have a positive outlook. And, I always say it, but it's like we don't ever know where we can go, but we do know we can get better, right? We keep getting better. And then most people I've seen that really, another great thing you said is the calling. This business, songwriting business, has a way of shaking out people who are not truly called, right? Because it just gets too hard. It gets too hard. So I think you do need a calling for it. And I think you're kicking ass, man. So are you cool if we go, I would really love to listen to your song again and then talk after that. Is that okay?
That sounds great, Chris.
And this is Mike Cali, and your song is Once Upon a Lime. You ready? Here we go.
I came from Jersey on a 4-hour flight, and it was just me. My girl left last night. I feel I'm getting down on one knee. I guess it was meant to be. She came from Georgia. She's single again. She caught him cheating. You didn't know what he had, so she's solo, leaving him behind. Gonna let the beach clear her mind. Once upon a time, we both had nothing. Showed up on an island, both heartbroken. Who knew I'd find you sitting in the white sand, drinking my head. You were standing at the bar, looking like a 10. Could've drank that tequila straight down. Thank God I figured something out. My excuse to slide next to you, tell the bartender to cut up a few. And that's about the time. Once upon a lime I met you. Once upon a lime I met you. Once upon a lime I met you. Hey. I bought the first shot to get your name, and then the next shot to forget why we came. We took the third round to the third floor. We barely made it through the door. Once upon a time we both had nothing. Showed up on an island, both heartbroken. Who knew I'd find you sitting in the white sand, drinking my hand. You were standing at the bar, looking like a 10. Could've drank that tequila straight down. Thank God I figured something out. My excuse to slide next to you, tell the bartender to cut up a few. And that's about the time. Once upon a lime I met you. Once upon a lime I met you. Once upon a lime I met you. We're on the same page, on the same way, drinking to forget their names. Both hitting rock bottom on the same day. Sitting in the white sand, drinking my head. You were standing at the bar, looking like a 10. Could've drank that tequila straight down. Thank God I figured something out. My excuse to slide next to you, tell the bartender to cut up a few. And that's about the time. Once upon a lime I met you. Once upon a lime I met you. Once upon a lime I met you.
Yeah, man, really great.
Thanks, Chris.
Really
I have to shine the light on the two other guys that I wrote the song with.
Great, please do. Yes.
And I'm so lucky to have met them this year. Shane Gray, he's from outside of San Francisco. Okay. And Matt Freedman, who is a pop country artist. I should first say Shane, I've actually just found on Instagram. I literally came across one of the songs that he wrote on Instagram, and I listened to the words, and it felt like a real song, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I said, I gotta reach out to this guy. So I did, and we instantly connected, and we began writing. And then separately, I reached out to Matt Freedman, who is a Philly-based country pop artist. And I met him through an app actually called We Should Write Sometime. I'm not sure whether you're familiar.
Yeah, I know that app. Sure.
Really a blessing. And one of the things that has helped make songwriting feel like a real thing to me up here in New Jersey, if that makes sense, connecting me with artists and other collaborators to work with. And Matt was another guy I reached out to, and we instantly connected. And he is in the process of launching his own pop country career. And I have been working on an EP with him that's due out by the end of the year. And this is one of the songs that we kind of sat down together to write. I connected Matt with Shane, which is something that I love doing. I love connecting people that I feel like are going to work well together. And this song happened to come out of that. And it came out of a voice note that Matt actually sent to me, kind of with that rhythmic intro that you heard, the I came from, and then he just kind of had a bunch of gibberish, and then we all got together and kind of filled in the blanks. And yeah, that's how that happened.
Love it. Well, I got to point out, you know me, I got to point out some things that I think are really fantastic.
Please.
So is that Matt singing?
So that's me singing, actually.
That's you singing.
This is a whole
vocal, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I actually created this demo after our write, and I did it in Logic from actually the room that I'm sitting in right now here in my house. And I'm on a journey to try and get this thing sounded like it came out of an actual studio.
That's pretty damn good, man. I love a couple things I've got to comment on for everybody listening who's kind of working their thing and trying to get it going. The hustle, man. This is what we call a hustle. Okay. You find somebody on Instagram that you like. You don't wait. You don't wonder. You reach out to them. You make that connection. You start working. You've got another guy, Matt, and you think, hey, this would be a good three-way write, and I think these ingredients would be right, and you make that happen. And you became aware of him, an artist up in your area that you could probably get to easily. And I think for a writer, what you want to do is exactly what you're doing, is be proactive. I'm complimenting you. That is the kind of proactive hustle that'll get you somewhere, man. That's exactly right. That's good. Congratulations, man. I think that's, you can sit in your room and write great stuff, forever. You know what I mean? But you need to get out and do those collaborations, and you need to make those connections because collaborations bring out different things. I'm sure you figure that out as in your writing. And also just another thing I got to say, this type of song is not easy to write. Okay. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's easier to write a more heartfelt, my heart is aching kind of song. Something with an up. There's another thing going on, which I love, which we used to always call cross-casting. So you've got a little bit of a heartbreak story going on, but you got a up-tempo music. So they're two different things, right? So, and I used to always call it cross-casting. So if you've got a sad lyric, put it with a happy melody. If you've got a happy melody, put it with a sad lyric. It always makes things more interesting. And then another thing about the song that I really love, the chorus lifts and kind of explodes on you, which is always great. And then the other thing is it just sounds very current and contemporary and very radio. You know what I mean? This is kind of song that people need, right? So you're filling a gap of, if an artist is making a record, a pop country artist, or just whatever kind of country artist, they're going to write the ballads, man. You know what I mean? They're going to have a girl that broke their heart and they're pissed off, and they're going to write that song. Now, if you write it with them, that's great. But this is the song they need, right?
I could totally relate. I could totally relate to what you're saying. I'm naturally a ballad guy, and part of this whole the year of 2021 goals was to push myself as more of an up-tempo writer.
Yeah.
because that's what I've heard is more attractive and wanted by artists. And I I'm trying to get my reps in, and I really appreciate all your kind words. And I would love to hear your kind of critique or feedback or where it could get better, kind of a thing. I would be really curious to hear that. But I think you nailed that so on the head, and I'm really proud that you acknowledge that it's an up-tempo song, because I am naturally a ballad guy.
Yeah, a lot of us are. A lot of us are. When you start out writing to you sort of just like bleed all over the page. You know what I mean? It's like it's an outpouring of your emotion, and that's right and that's good. But as a professional writer, you have to figure out how to get these things in some little packages, right? That being said, I built our whole property off of ballads. So I should not say that ballads don't work, because they do. And it would be stupid of me to say that. It's just when you're looking for your first publishing deal, you want to have some tempo or mid stuff to show them. You need to have that,
This is all super helpful to hear. I definitely have Nashville set in my GPS, so to speak. I don't have an exact move date, but I hear that if I want to make it happen, I have to come to Nashville. And my goal is to kind of start a snowball up here in New Jersey and then roll that snowball to Nashville. I'm well aware of the 10-year rule, and I'm like, I got to start my clock. I got to get there so I can start my clock.
Don't let people scare you. Don't let people scare you. We're all on a different journey, and we're all at different places, right? But if you hustle and make connections, it happens way faster. Well, man, I'm really impressed, Mike. Love the song. Just say thanks to your co-writers for letting us hear it. And y'all just keep rocking, man. I'm impressed, and I think you're going to go far. And I really appreciate you submitting the song and letting us do a little interview with you, man. It's really been great.
Chris, I really appreciate it. Chris and Dana, thank you so much for having me. On behalf of my co-writers too, really, really an honor. We're, inspired by the podcast on a regular basis. So to just be here, just for a little bit is amazing, and a real honor. So thank you so much for having us.
This is Mike Cali, and this is Pitch List.
Don't go away. Pitch List will be right back after the break.
Thanks for listening to the Pitch List Minisode thus far. Next up, we've got our co-winner, Daniel Leathersich.
Good morning. We got a special show today. You know what? I was gonna say we're gonna be honest with the people. I can't not be honest. I can't pretend it. Okay, this guy is a guy who is a co-winner on our song contest. A dude named Daniel Leathersich, who is the nicest guy in the world.
Hey.
We had an interview 2 days ago in which we did a full pitch list interview. And somehow, this has never happened in the history of the show, but we had a technical glitch and it did not record, or it recorded and got lost. We cannot, believe me, we can't get it. So Daniel has graciously agreed to do the show again. And we discussed briefly, we'll just try to get it natural. But I think the best way for it to be natural, Daniel, is that we just tell him what happened and then we're going to move on. So without any further ado, this is Daniel Leathersich on take 2 of the Pitch List Song Contest. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. And well, you know what? It was a good warm up, and now we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and we can talk more like friends. So let's talk about you. You sent in a song, as we talked about before. We got a bunch of songs. We felt like your song and another song were so close. Actually, I felt this. I didn't want to make one the winner and not one the winner, because they were very close, and I was just going to be bummed out for either one of you guys. So we did a co-winner thing. Your song is called Ball Cap. It's a great demo of you with just vocal and acoustic guitar. And we're going to play that later, but just to point out for everybody listening, when you hear this, think about how great it works with just a guitar vocal. It's really, really effective. And I think that's the thing to kind of pay attention to in the world of new songwriters who are always wondering, do I demo? Do I not? Tell us about yourself, Daniel. Where are you from?
I grew up around Philadelphia. I kind of lived a little bit of all over, Midwest and Northeast, and lived at the beach for a summer in New Jersey. That was exciting. And then kind of wound up in Nashville about 4 years ago after making trips back and forth and, deciding if it was the place for me. And little by little, I fell in love with Nashville more and more and more, and realized that if I wanted to tackle this songwriting dream, that this was the place to be.
So you said you made multiple trips kind of feeling out Nashville, right? What was the thing that sort of pushed you over the edge that made you decide, hey, man, I'm going to move here?
A couple things. One, just the talent, walking into a room where you don't know anybody, you never heard of anybody, and having them blow your absolute socks straight off your feet.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday at 6:00.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about Nashville is you can pretty much go do anything, anytime, and be impressed by the talent level.
Yep.
And also just hearing people's stories, like, everybody has something that goes along the lines of didn't know what I was doing, came to Nashville, made friends, had success. So,
yeah,
that's what I'm doing too.
So got it. So you were attracted to the level of talent here. And then you were also attracted to a story that you heard, which is this is doable, right?
Yes.
This is not like a pipe dream. That's not possible. It is difficult. And did you have any moments when you moved where you thought, oh crap, this is not a good idea? Or was it pretty much like, this is the right place for me to be the whole time?
The hardest part was the transition from there to here, because it involved, quitting jobs and selling a house and, living apart from my wife for almost a year and wondering where money was going to come from and all that stuff. But, it's life, and it sorts itself out if you stay focused and decide what you want and go after it.
So you right. Okay. So you had a more complicated life. You weren't just right out of high school and throwing your stuff in a pickup truck.
Exactly.
So
I didn't even buy a guitar until I was 23.
Wow. So what were you doing before? I read a little bit, but tell us.
I've always written poetry. I've been keeping a journal for, 30 years or something like that. I've written short stories, I've written novels. I think a lot of people come to songwriting from the song side. They like singing, they like rock bands, they like music.
Musicians.
Musicians. And I like music too, obviously, but I was always a writer. So I come from it from a writing perspective, the creative, the creation, the process, all that stuff I love about, writing in general, but, songwriting is in specific. Does that answer your question? I forget what the question was.
Yeah, I forgot what it was too, but I like the answer. Yeah. So, I asked, you said you got your first guitar at 23.
Right.
And it made me curious. Well, wow, that is later to start playing. So you didn't play guitar before 23. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I was also a visual artist. I made paintings and things like that with it. So I've been kind of thinking creatively. I know how to talk about work. I know how to think through a problem. I know how to make decisions creatively. And I think that has helped in songwriting. I think if you come here in your teens or for college or right after college, and you haven't had the opportunity to be creative for a long period of time, it can be like running into a wall. I work with some young artists who are super talented, but haven't figured out how to think through the creative process efficiently. Not that they can't, but like it's a slow process. And I remember that as an artist, it's like, how do I get what I want in my head out,
Well, yes. And I'm trying to think of a politically correct way to say this. When we're younger as writers, we have trouble in general with thinking. It hurts your head to think, and you're not used to it. And, being able to, I had a writer kind of take me under his wings when I first moved here, a guy named Kerry Kirk Phillips, who used to say that most people can't concentrate on one thing for longer than 20 seconds. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true, but I appreciate where he was coming from. And I think sometimes as a creative person in any discipline, like I spent 25 years as a songwriter, I'm now working on a novel and screenplays. And a lot of what I've learned as a songwriter really applies. And I think you're absolutely right. When you're young, you kind of need to learn that anywhere you can. And the example I thought of with you starting late on guitar, you can throw a rock and hit a guitar player in Nashville. I mean, I could throw a rock out my back door and hit one. I'm telling you, because all my neighbors play guitar.
Finding throwing rocks at your neighbors all the time.
No. But finding a great concept person like my wife or a great lyric person, rare. I love that you came from. I think it's really valuable to come from other disciplines. Long story short, I think it's very valuable.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, like people told me when I was making paintings that my artist statements were better than my paintings.
Wow.
Like me being able to think about what I did and tell people about it, I was more apt at that than actually creating the work.
Right.
So it's no surprise that I stuck with writing.
That's interesting. So they thought you had a little more talent as a writer than as a writer, even about your own work as a painter.
Yep.
Isn't it funny? Well, let's talk further about your journey. So you got here. It was a year before your wife came to join you here. That had to be difficult, right?
Yeah, it was impossible. I mean, I remember I was renting this house that luckily a friend of mine kind of had vacant at the right time. So I got to move in. And that winter, it was like the coldest ever winter on record in Nashville. And it was this little house that didn't really have heat, it was just basically a heat pump. And I had no furniture. I was sleeping on the floor under like 7 blankets. And the inside of the house was like 58 degrees, all day. And it was 18 degrees outside. And I was like, what am I doing here?
I'm loving this so far.
Yeah. And, trying to find a job and trying to find where to hang out and trying to find friends and trying to write songs at the same time.
Did you have moments? Did you have moments there where you're like, I don't know if this is the best idea I've ever had, or did you always feel driven through the whole process?
Yeah, I think once I made the choice to come here, it's an all in. It's like jumping into the river and you just got to swim to the other side because you can't get back out on the side you came in on. If you're jumping off a cliff, you can't climb back up the side of the.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And plus, I'm sure you had positive things happening that sort of sustained you. Like you said, you can go out these writers' nights and just be so inspired or terrified or both,
Yeah, I don't think I was ever afraid to fail or afraid that I would quit. But there's definitely those moments of, am I good enough? Am I not cool enough? Am I too weird? Am I too old? Do I write hip enough things? There's a question every day.
Sure.
But in the end, it's like you solve it by writing a song,
Well, yeah. And really, no matter what your deal is, if you do it great, all you need is one artist to sort of dig what you do and you're off to the races. That's usually how it happens. And I always say it, but it's true for newer writers to town. Get out to those writers' nights and find you a young artist that you really believe in, and then go up there and get involved. Get up there and help. And like, hey, you need help loading your van up for the gig? Come on, and just get involved with that artist who's dying for somebody to pay attention to them, right? And to believe in them because they're right where you are. And then you put a few eggs in those baskets and somebody gets the deal. Now you're writing on that record.
Yeah. And full disclosure to anybody who's not here doing it is like, even that's hard. I met a lot of young artists along the way. They're like, sure, man, look me up. And then you never hear from them again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That happens. Still happens.
It's true. It's
but
true.
Eventually you find your tribe.
Well, exactly. And the problem is everybody's looking for everyone wants to write with somebody who's higher up on the ladder than them. Okay. And it's a little bit tougher to make connections when everybody's striving, because if y'all are at the same point on the ladder, you might both be thinking, well, maybe, but man, if I could get this guy, he writes with this other guy who is further up the ladder. Maybe I'll write with him and then he'll introduce me. You know what I mean?
Well, you also just never know what's going to happen in the future. You start writing with somebody who isn't as good of a singer as you, or may not be as creative as you, or can't play guitar or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you build that relationship because they're a good hang, as people say, and they're a cool hang. And then 4 years later, that person makes friends with Brad Paisley's drummer or whatever, you know.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen. So you just find people who you gel with, regardless of, you know, everybody's goal is to get better.
Right.
So if you find someone, you know, I was lucky enough to find a bunch of people through NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association.
Killer. That's great.
Who, you know, in the beginning, none of us knew what the hell we were doing. And then as time went on, we figured out each other. And there's some guys that I write funny songs with, and some guys that I write tempo country stuff with, and some guys that I write real heartfelt stuff with. And you know, if you would have put the four of us in the same room 4 years ago, you'd be like, these people have nothing in common.
Wow. And so, and that all came through NSAI.
Yeah, that's where I knew one person when I moved to town, a guy who was an independent plugger, and he was a real kind of champion of what I was starting to do, still is. And so I'd come down and talk to him a little bit, and then go to NSAI meetings, and I can literally trace back everybody I know in town to 2 or 3 people.
Wow. And that's usually what happens. You find one person, and it might not be the biggest person in the block, but it's somebody who knows something, and that's all it takes. And that you did. How did you find that person? Through NSAI? Did you play a song somewhere? How did they find?
Yeah, actually, at a Philadelphia chapter meeting of NSAI, it was just kind of a song critique session, and we just got to talking after everybody played their song, and said, next time I come to Nashville, can I look you up? And he's like, sure. Easy as that, right?
Yeah.
8 years later.
Yeah. But here's the point to focus on. You went to that Philadelphia NSAI chapter meeting. You sought that out, and you carved time out of your schedule, and you actually went and you applied yourself. And that led to, look at all that led to. A lot of people would maybe want to do this, but don't follow up and go to their local NSAI. And if they don't have a local, they don't take the trip to Nashville when they can have a week off. And, or, you know, NSAI is so great, man. They will talk, you know, now I'm sure they have their protocols and everything, but their door is open to everyone as far as I can tell.
And it's not for everybody. I mean, I know a lot of people who went for a year and got what they needed out of it and then went on to something else. But it's just a great place to start. There are people there that want to help songwriters.
That's right. Yeah. And as you know, and I had the same experience, I think everyone does. When you first move here, you know, you don't know anybody, you know, you don't know anything. And it's a little bit intimidating, you know, it's a little bit intimidating. So it would be good to have a place I would just suggest that people start there. It's always tough in the beginning, but it all works out. It finds a way to work out.
Well, you were talking earlier just about, you know, going to that meeting. And I think it's important to have the commitment, you know, like there were a lot of birthday parties I missed, and, you know, holidays I wasn't home for. And, you know, like I didn't go to the Disney World vacation. I didn't go on the family cruises because I was in Nashville. You know, any opportunity I had to come down here to write with somebody, to meet somebody, to see what the music business was about, I was here. And so, you know, there's a little bit of sacrifice, but it's this commitment. And it's because I set that goal of this is what I want to do. You know, goal setting is important. Oh,
100%. And also having people in your life that support you with that is important. It sounds like your wife was supportive, at least, that you could do that.
Well, my wife, you know, was really on board when she came to Nashville with me and was like, there's so many coffee shops here. The way to her heart is the coffee shop. So I was like,
oh, really? So she loves coffee shops?
Let's move to Nashville. You can have as much coffee as you want.
Oh, yeah. They're everywhere. And they're good ones, too.
And now she's in love with the whole scene. You know, she loves writers' rounds, and she loves going to the Basement East for shows. And, you know, she loves Robert's Western World on Broadway. And so do I. You know, now we're both in love with Nashville.
That's great. So that's great. So she's loving it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. There's always been a good vibe here, but there's a great energy here now. You can feel this town exploding into a big city, you know, where it's been a medium-sized city for a long time. And really, when I moved here 26 years ago, it was Mayberry. You know what I mean? It was like one good Italian restaurant, one steakhouse, one Japanese hibachi place, you know, literally. It was a smaller town when I moved here, and we've really seen it change. And it's all.
What was the scene like? Like, was the music scene all just Broadway, or were there other places around town?
It was more completely focused on Music Row. It all happened right there. Well, killer, man, we should listen to your song. Let me pull it up. This is Daniel's song. It's called Ball Cap. We'll play it now, and we'll discuss on the other side. Here we go.
That's faded on an old lucky favorite means no way he's giving up now. An aftco with mud stains means he might spend all day trying to hook one worth bragging about. There's rips in the mesh and sweat on the rim. He'll be outside when he's clocked in. It's racetracks, it's Bass Pro, snapback or Velcro. It's where you're from, where you been. Home team or bandwagon, outfielders, cornfielders, truck drivers, salt lifers. You've seen where somebody's heart's at. Have you seen their ball cap? Have you seen their ball cap? A brim hanging too loose on a 6-year-old Babe Ruth means he's starting his big league dreams. A white cross on a red hat means she saved some lives that were swept out too far from the beach. There's ribbons and pins and American flags. That's a hero who made it back. It's racetracks, it's Bass Pro, snapback or Velcro. It's where you're from, where you've been. Home team or bandwagon, outfielders, cornfielders, truck drivers, salt lifers. You've seen where somebody's heart's at. Have you seen their ball cap? Have you seen their ball cap? Forward or backward, concrete or red dirt, wear it proud and wear it out. It's racetracks, it's Bass Pro, snapback or Velcro. It's where you're from, where you've been. Home team or bandwagon, outfielders, cornfielders, truck drivers, salt lifers. You've seen where somebody's heart's at. Have you seen their ball cap? Let me see your ball cap.
Man, that is so great.
Thank you.
Let's just start with a couple things for the kids listening at home. Number one, nouns. I always try to say that when you dump, and look, you don't want a noun dump, okay? It's got to have meaning, but nouns give visuals, right? So when you're tracking with that song, man, it's like you're giving us all these visuals that properly dropped in add up to emotion. You know, you have a great lift in the chorus, so we get that. And then I think it's really good. It's really heartfelt. It's an interesting take. It's a easy visual. It's like sometimes you'll hear some songs like 2 hours later, you say, "Oh yeah, so and so played me a song," and they're like, "Yeah, what's it called?" And you're like, "It was really good. It was about but I can't remember the name." Right? This one, Ball Cap, you'll remember. Yeah. Right? It's like, what's the song called? Oh, you might go, it's the thing about a hat is, oh, Ball Cap. That's what, so it's like, it's memorable. I think it has a lot of stuff going for it. I forgot to ask you, do you have co-writers on the song? If you do, we should list them.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote that with Ryan Brisotti and Michael Keys.
Okay.
And it was Ryan's idea because he had just been traveling and he said, at the airport, he saw all these people with ball caps and it kind of represented where they were from. And I said, well, maybe it was where they were going, like when
or where they want to go, where they want to be. From.
And then we realized that all three of us in the room were wearing a ball cap that represented something. And we're like, oh yeah, we got to write that. We got to write that idea.
Was it a tough co-writer or did it go pretty easy?
Pretty easy. I mean, the one challenge was that we wanted to make it special. Like it would have been pretty easy to just talk about, you know, your home team and have the whole song be about your hometown,
Right.
Or you know, make the whole song about the brand that you like, or it being camo and being outdoors. But so we tried to pick some unique stuff in there. Like, I don't know how many songs I've heard about lifeguards yet, but also stuff that's common to everybody. You know, it's the home team or the bandwagon, you know, that kind of stuff.
Well, and you try to get the overall big picture universal. And like we say, specific is the most universal. You've got all these specific images, but they all add up to a big picture that's inclusive, you know. Right. Like you said, you could have written it focused on your hometown or a team or a sport or a lifestyle, and you've kind of included everybody.
Yeah, and the push, I mean, we talked a lot about it in the right. The push was, okay, so it's that kind of hat, but what does that kind of hat say about the guy wearing it?
Right.
You know, what is that guy doing while he's wearing the hat? So there's, yeah, the further into the character you can go, the further into the story you can go, the more I feel like it's going to relate to people.
Well, and just like screenwriting or novels, the writers may have lengthy discussions about a character that go very deep, and in the actual song or the actual book, we may scratch the surface of what we're going to actually talk about. We're only going to get this much of the character, but the writer knows so much more, which actually lets you know how your character really is going to act and respond. Right.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like I've seen when you're doing story songs, it's good to spend a lot of time talking about who these people are. You're not going to write all this in the song, but it's good to know, like, because it'll inform what choices they're going to make. It's much easier to say my character would do this or my character would not do this if I know where he went to high school and when he got his heart broken first.
Yeah.
But the audience doesn't need to know that, but it's the writers, we do.
Well, and it sets the stage for a sequel, right?
There you go. Exactly.
Well, there's all, you know, in that same way, in this song, there's essentially 6 to 8 characters that we talk about, not including all the people that are just name dropped in the chorus. So, you know, maybe me and Ryan and Michael should get together and write the story about how each of those 8 people had got their first heartbreak. Yeah. There's 8 songs right there.
There you go. There's 8 songs. You got me thinking about the old days, man. I am hoping that at some point we get some sort of historic overlay or someone to get in there and really get serious about protecting Music Row on those 2 streets, you know, because a publishing company is not going to be able to maintain the kind of rent pressure that's going to develop, you know, just from competition.
Yeah. I always think about that in the context of the business, right? Like in 1968, country music as a business was the size of a business that could be run out of a couple houses.
That's right.
But now country music is global and huge and $1 billion business. It doesn't fit in a little house anymore. So, you know, I agree with you that the history should be protected. But I also think the fact that some of these publishing companies are moving to bigger, greener pastures is a success story.
It is a success story. I'm hoping it continues to be one. Our heyday, me and Amy and my friends, you know, it had become a huge business. I mean, artists were selling 10 million records, you know.
Right.
That was unusual, but a lot of artists sold 4 and everybody sold 1 or 2. So it was just like it got way bigger for the 90s and the early 2000s, a good chunk of the 2000s and 10s. With the streaming thing, publishing's really taken a hit, you know, so we'll have to see on the publishing. I think the labels are in great shape.
Yeah.
All right, man, we could talk forever. Daniel, I love your song. I'm so glad you could be on Pitch List. And I think you got a great story. I think our listeners will be inspired by your story, man. And I really appreciate you being on the show. This is Daniel Leathersich on Pitch List.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch List, produced in partnership with the American Songwriter Podcast Network. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcast or your preferred listening platform. And if you want, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and review. For exclusive content from this week's guest and more, you can visit our website at pitchlistpodcast.com or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Plus, don't forget to let us know on social media what songwriter, musician, or music business professional you want to hear from next. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.